What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, please consider going down below the video, subscribing, hitting that thumbs up button, because it helps the channel out quite a bit. So I actually got one of the Replicade New Wave Toys 1942X device sent over to me for review from our friends over at New Wave Toys. So thank you guys for sending this out. Pretty excited about this one. We're just going to do a straight up unboxing and I'm going to give you guys my initial thoughts. So let's go ahead and get this thing out of the box. All right, so we got a box within a box, and I'm assuming there's probably going to be another box within this box too. Let's go ahead and open this up, and that's what I thought. So we got another box in here. This is with the proper packaging. So let's get this thing out of here too, nice and shrink wrapped. We'll take a look at the art in 1 second. All right, so here we are. So as you guys can see, this is a 1942 from Capcom arcade style, and it looks like they've also included the bonus 1943 mini arcade stick for 2-player gameplay, which is actually pretty cool. They did something similar to this with their Street Fighter cabinet, and I gotta say, actually holding that controller in my hand, I was worried, but it actually feels really good. In fact, it feels better to play on these secondary controllers than it does to actually play the main control deck on the device itself. So pretty stoked to check this out. So right away, we've got our 1942 instruction manual. They do provide us with kind of a top secret instructions sticker that you can go ahead and throw on there, as well as their standard mini coins that are just kind of decorative, and they look pretty cool, but they don't really serve any specific purpose. Next, we've got that secondary controller, so I'll go ahead and pull that out, and you can actually see it looks pretty good. It feels nice in your hands. They've kind of rounded out the edges so you can actually kind of rest it on your thumb, the inside of your thumb, and it feels pretty good. Pretty clicky here. So you can hear that. Joysticks feel really good, especially for being so small. Now, oh, you can see I actually have a little bit of paint damage on that, but I guess that's a little disappointing, but it is what it is. Let me see if I can get that in focus. There we go. So you can see there's a little bit of paint damage right here. Next, you've got your clicky buttons. Everything feels pretty good, and they've got a great sound to them. So overall, pretty good. These are going to be connected in with a micro USB cable. So we've got some cables here. This is a micro USB cable, and then they've also given us a secondary micro USB cable, which is used for powering the device on. So you've got one for the controller, and you've got one to power on the device. All right, let's get this thing out of the packaging so we can look at the device itself. Now, I gotta say, this actually looks really good. Let's get these off. All right, so here we are. We've got our Romstar / Capcom 1942 beautiful vertical screen. Now, there is actually one thing that I'm not really a big fan of with this cabinet, and that is they did include a secondary controller, and unfortunately there's nowhere to really mount it. Like, there isn't a little pocket that you can put it on. The Street Fighter cabinet. They actually had a little cutout here that was acrylic that you popped open. Your controller kind of fit nicely in there with the wire and everything, and it actually was all nice and self-contained. So in this case, you don't really have anywhere to put this secondary controller. You just kind of have to, you know, keep it to the side of the device or put it on the actual control deck or whatever when you're not using it. So not really that big of a fan. I feel like that's a missed opportunity here. Other than that, it's not such a terrible thing. In terms of the control deck, you've got your player 1, player 2 start. You've got your joystick right here with the ball top on it. You've got a fire button, and you've got a loop button. And what's interesting is that these feel very different than the second controller. You can hear that they're not very clicky, and the buttons aren't very clicky, but when you check these out, there's a big difference. So it's actually quite interesting that they've got two different sets. Now, obviously, this is 1943, this is 1942, so maybe they chose to use different hardware. And when they release their 1943 machine, maybe they're going to be using this hardware inside of it, so that way it matches up. But just interesting to point that out. Next, we've got our like faux coin door right here. We've got a button here, and you've actually got two buttons. So you've got a button up top and a button down below. The way that that works for this rocker is you press the up button to insert coins, and you press the bottom button to get into the menu. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the side art here. And you can see the side art is really nice. It's got like a faux wood grain finish to it, and it looks really good with the graphic on top of it. Now it's actually cool because if you look really closely, that graphic, you can actually see that the wood grain is in the graphic itself, and it looks just so sharp. Now it's interesting that they did kind of a textured graphic here, because up here, it's not textured at all. It's very smooth. And I mean, it's got a little bit of a texture, but not nearly as much as on the graphic. Pretty impressive. The design in general from New Wave Toys is probably the best in any of these smaller scale arcade machines. These guys are probably my favorite manufacturer for all these devices, so pretty awesome. You've got your stereo speakers right over here. We've got our power button and our volume, and then towards the bottom we have two USB ports. So if you actually want to connect two of these controllers, so that way you don't have somebody playing right on it, you can actually have two people sitting side playing it, you can do that. They've also got their charge port for the built-in battery, and it looks like right underneath here we have an HDMI port, and it's more or less saying change TV display setting to fit. So you have to see the manual. I guess it has something to do with the way that it's going to be output, but they put that on there. You just stick your HDMI through that, or you can take the sticker off if you're like me. Okay, let's go ahead and power this thing on. Now these things do take a little while to boot up, so I hit the power button. It's probably going to be about 5 or so seconds before we get that screen to power on. There we go. So you may not have noticed it on screen right now just because of the lighting, but the marquee is actually lit, and I do want to show that off because it does look really nice. So if I go ahead and kill my lights, you can actually see that lit marquee looks pretty good. I'm going to try to put it in focus so you guys can actually see what's going on there. There it is. So you can see the lit marquee actually looks really sharp the way it is. It's well diffused, and overall it just really adds to the aesthetic of the miniature cabinet. So pretty stoked, and it looks really sharp. Back to the screen itself. I mean, the screen is nice and vibrant. The angles in which you can view it on are not the greatest. That being said, it is a relatively small screen, and it's not really designed to have people sitting on wide angles in order to view it. So for what it is, I think it is totally acceptable. You've got, like I said, your couple options here. We're gonna go ahead and jump into the menu. So if we press the down button on it, we're gonna jump into our menu. And let me see if I can zoom in a bit. So for the most part with the menu, you've got access to kind of your dip switch settings. So you've got your game selection, you've got your difficulty, so you can adjust that to easy, medium, or hard. You can turn the marquee off if you're not really a big fan of it. You can actually adjust the brightness of the backlight, so you can make the screen much brighter, which as you guys can see there, that's the brightest setting. And then going down, that is the least brightest or the dimmest setting. So we can go ahead and go back up to that, and we'll set it to normal. So then you've got player 1, player 2 switch. So that'll mean if you want to plug in that secondary controller and you want to use that as your player 1 controller, you can actually go ahead and set that up this way. You just hit that switch, and then that way the USB controller will act as player 1. You've also got their scan lines, which I don't like scan lines. I think if you guys have been watching the channel, you know how I feel about them, so I just like to leave them off. You can also adjust your starting lives and any of the bonus life as well, so you can adjust the value in which those are set. And then obviously all the way on the bottom we have just the battery indicator, which is nice and handy to have there. Now in terms of the audio, let's go ahead and crank the volume up on this thing. So I've got the audio right now on full blast. I'm gonna go ahead and insert a coin so we can get some audio rolling. And we're gonna go ahead and player 1 start. And it's actually really loud. So I'll let you guys listen to that just for a little bit here. So very cool. The audio sounds really good, the gameplay is really good, the joystick actually feels pretty nice, and generally speaking, it's another really great product by New Wave Toys. I've reviewed a bunch of these guys in the past, taken a look at almost every single one that they've ever released, and honestly, these things are some of the best that you can get in the 1/6 scale or even quarter scale market. They're just easily the best quality builds that you can get, period, that are available. Now, I will say that 1942 is not necessarily one of my favorite games. It's a little bit before my time, but it is a fun shoot 'em up. So definitely, if you are interested in these style of games, now's your time to get it, because these things, once they're sold out and the production run is over, they don't make them anymore. So if you're interested in grabbing one, I'll leave some links in the description down below. Definitely check it out. They also have a really awesome Facebook group, which I'll leave links to as well if you are interested in kind of checking out to see some of the other products, or maybe you just want to jump into a community with some other people who have already purchased this or are interested in purchasing these things. Again, links will be in the description down below. But that's pretty much it. Overall, my final thoughts on this thing are that it is a really awesome device. Generally speaking, I think that New Wave Toys makes some of the best products in this form factor, and they have such a great attention to detail, and they really do their best to make these things look as arcade authentic as humanly possible. So kudos to them. Again, a shout out to them for sending this out to me for review, but that is pretty much all I've got for you guys in this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.